Hey, this is Nicole Kelly, host of Disarming Disability. Thanks for listening to the following show on Public House Media.
This is Dr. Mariah White, host of Your Life Matters, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you are done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my show, Your Life Matters, where we talk about dreaming big and dreaming bold to reach your wildest dreams in both your health and your happiness. A new show comes out every single Tuesday. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of Your Life Matters. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
And welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too, with the release of DC's version of Captain Marvel, known these days as Shazam, of course. We wanted to take a little bit of time and just look at the movie, discuss it, and just see, how we feel about it, because compared to a lot of the recent live-action DC offerings, it's a very, very different movie. It's instead of being dark and gritty, it's, got a lot of color, it's got humor, even though it does deal with some heavier, more serious themes. So, all right, guys, what all did you guys think of the movie?
My husband and I absolutely loved it. It was, entertaining, but at the same time, really thought-provoking, and I just thought it was really well done. And plus, it has Zachary Levi, which I'm just a huge fan of. I first just saw him in Chuck, and then I saw him he was the voice of Eugene in Tangled. He's been in a few other things here and there, but just really excited to see him in a big title role again. So that was a lot of fun.
I feel like I need to first say that this episode's going to have a ton of spoilers. So, spoiler alert.
Thanks for mentioning. I totally would have forgotten.
Stop listening if you haven't seen it yet. I had a friend of mine go to the comic book store and pick up some comics for me of both Captain Marvel, the DC Captain Marvel, as well as the later versions of The Power of Shazam, just because I wanted to. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to see the movie, so I wanted to make sure. And I got probably halfway through the comic book that is actually like the origin story, so it's supposed to be a lot, very close to the movie. And I got halfway through, and then my daughter stole it. So, I should know better, but she stole it, and she read it all in one sitting, of course.
Yeah.
And it's not a small book, It's,
I bet.
It's your standard trade-size comic book. But instantaneously, she was like, let's go see it. I want to go see it. So we picked up and went and saw it. And she loved it, and I really enjoyed it too. But I do wish that I had had a little bit more time to read a lot of the other comics that I'd gotten, especially because the style of the drawings changed so much. But to the movie, I don't know. I'm not much of a DC fan at all. So, if you had to ask me, I'd be like Marvel all the way.
Yeah.
But it's funny to me because I really enjoyed this one, and the big difference about this particular superhero is the family aspect that was so prominent throughout the whole origin story. It was all about family and kind of what that does to you. So
yeah,
I think that was what really drew me in, is that it didn't focus so much on the lack of family, but that your family is what you make it. So I thought that was probably the best part of it.
Yeah, that was honestly one of my favorite parts too, because I know like a lot of other movies and really kind of society in general kind of pushes you towards, your quote unquote real family, your blood family. And even if that family is toxic and not good for you. And in this movie, we can clearly see that, yes, he wanted his mom. He wanted to meet her, but when he met her and he saw that, you know what, she doesn't really care for me that much. If she really cared for me, she would have fought for me. And you know what? I have people out there who do care for me, and that's what's important. And
Exactly. Yeah, it's like he needed the closure of actually getting back in touch with her to finally find out what actually happened. And when he did find that out, he was good. He was done.
The thing is, I think we're jumping the gun a little bit here, but that was one of the parts of the movie that I felt really let down by.
Yeah.
Because I wanted there to be more of a full circle with that.
Okay.
I hate to say it this way because, and Elisabeth, correct me, I'm not a writer, so I don't write scripts. I don't write anything. But I felt like a lot of times origin stories like to bring it full circle for you. So in the very beginning, when the social worker was saying, "Oh, I don't know why you're always chasing after someone who never looked for you, never, why are you always looking for somebody who never looked for you?" Okay, and that was significant. That was huge.
Yeah.
But it was sort of like downplayed. And then when he goes and he finally finds her, and Eugene is able to find the right person, and everybody's really like tentative about letting him know this information, but he goes and he finds her, and she turns out to be okay with living her life without him. And she's like, "Well, you're okay, right?"
Yeah, like she
"No,
didn't
I'm
actually
not."
like ask him what he was up to, or if he's.
No, she didn't. I mean, and I get it. 17. Maybe she thought of it as a blessing in disguise. She's obviously stupid because the guy was with the police, and he's not like going to find suddenly, boom, perfect family. I mean,
he was with the police. Then we had, when she saw him before they actually like officially parted ways, and she's like, "Oh, he'll be better off without
with
her."
the policeman who was putting him in a blanket. Come on,
can't keep him.
Right. So
like I don't know.
And like the perfect, beautiful adoption story is the one where you give your child up to open adoption or closed adoption, and it's a family that really does well. But that's like the perfect story. And this is a superhero origin story, so we knew that wasn't going to happen to begin with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I just felt like after that, when he starts to walk away, and what was it that happened in the hallway that he had to go running to go...
he called his brother. Or his brother called
him.
Or his brother's phone called him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He thought it was his brother, but...
Yeah. When that happens, I needed more. Like, I needed something to really
I wanted
bring
I wanted her to come back into the movie somewhere.
Yeah, I was good with her being gone.
I mean, I wanted them to have another conversation somehow.
Yeah, but I wanted there to be like an end closure dunzo moment where he was like, "Oh, I gotta go now because family is." I wanted a lame, like, heartwarming, fuzzy feeling Disney moment.
Yeah.
I really wanted the. I gotta go to, my family is the people who would look for me, or I don't know, something to
like
bring it all full circle.
Yeah.
And
I think
that didn't happen for me. So I felt gypped. Like, I felt like I had legitimately been gypped.
Like, you wanted his mom to know that he had moved on so far past her now?
Well, I think, and this is, when I initially, saw it, I kind of felt that, in a way that they didn't really do a whole lot with it, and I was like, really, that's it? She just left him because, life was hard, and she was 17, and, that seemed kind of weird, but, the more I thought about it, and when I saw it the second time, it kind of hit me a little bit more that, it's trying to mimic a little bit more of a realistic situation of a mother who would just drop off her child and leave it with, a police officer and just drop off the face of the earth. Mm-hmm. She's not going to be excited to see him. She's not going to care what he's up to. She's barely going to care that he's alive and on his feet, but, at the same time, and there's not going to be this heartwarming, reunion for them, and there's not going to be any kind of like real closure on her end, as he's okay and everything like that,
She kind of had her closure, because she saw him with the police officer and was like, okay, well, bye.
Yeah, and then when he handed her that compass, I'm like, yeah, that's him telling her, you're the one that's lost. I'm not the one that's lost.
Okay.
I liked that moment. That
now
really
that I
hit
think
me,
about
actually.
it, the compass was definitely the signifying
Yeah.
moment, but I just felt like I needed more of a, I don't know.
I wanted her to
something
cry
more.
or something.
No.
You wanted her to realize...
Would you?
Yeah.
You wanted her to realize just how much she messed up.
Yes. Yes,
Right.
I did.
Yeah.
That's it.
I wanted her to understand, like, dude, or for there even to have been some kind of ending where, I don't know if she had been in the crowd at the
and she saw like
carnival
how
at the end
what he
or
was
something.
doing or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when he went back to being Billy and she saw him, she'd be like, oh, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like I wanted, maybe if she had shown up again in that way, but also the element that they did where when he was little, they played out him being left at the carnival, and then they went back, and when she was telling how she had perceived how things had ended with, losing him, it was different. Like, it was more stressed and more,
like, yeah, you could
like,
tell that there was a lot more tension in the flashback
Yeah.
from her perspective.
Yep. But I
It
felt like
definitely
that
felt
could have been more
different.
pronounced too. Like, that could have been exaggerated a little bit better, just to make it more something. I don't know. We could digress about this forever. We could talk about attachment theory for adolescents and
much.
children,
Oh, yeah.
and
Psychology,
the
everything.
foster system, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I thought it was a really cool representation of a great foster family, because all of those kids
Yeah.
absolutely loved being in that house. And that was just so cool to see.
Right. I was a little worried actually when they were messing with him, and one of them was like, "Don't let them fool you," and I was like, "What?
Oh no, no, yeah.
I don't need a messed up foster
Let's not
family.
do that,
Don't
please. Yeah, no, but I really enjoyed that, and it was the little girl was just adorable.
yeah.
She reminded me of my
Darla
daughter.
was honestly one of the best parts of the whole movie. I loved Darla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just fantastic. And like, can she keep a secret? Not at all.
No, what did
then
she
when
say?
she
She
did,
said mediocre.
Mediocre, yeah,
mediocre.
yeah. And then Freddie's like, no, she can't. I loved it. But then when she did, though, she was so proud of herself that she had to tell everybody that she knew the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like, oh, you guys finally figured it out.
I didn't say anything.
I'm a good sister.
Exactly. Oh,
She was like holding her breath while they were trying to figure it out, and then she like let it all out in a big sigh. Yes, you finally got it.
Oh yes, she's just adorable, and the hugs and everything. The whole time that they were doing the superhero tests and trying to figure out what Shazam's actual powers are and everything, and Freddie was doing the videos and putting them up on YouTube. I was watching the view count climb on all the different videos and the subscribers climb, and I'm like, wow, would they figure out who this is just by who made the videos, or like wouldn't they be able to like
maybe only if they monetized it, because they'd have to
yes. Because you have to
link all that
disclose
up.
certain stuff. Yeah, maybe. But in which, I don't know. I guess they probably didn't then. But I just, my concern then is like, well, what happens to, like what happens with all of that stuff that's now out on the internet? And then, like, does Shazam and, like, are all the other people, are they called Shazams too? Or, I don't know. Anyways, that's
like,
a separate
wasn't it-
question. Side thought. But so all of the other guys too, like, will other villains find them through all of the YouTube stuff and then be like, hey, I know those.
Oh, see, this is what I thought was really interesting, is that we get a lot of this perspective of people on the outside of all the major superheroes in the DC universe. Whereas, because most of the movies and superheroes in general really are focused around the superhero and like their kind of insular world where, superheroing is just normal. But we don't really get much of a perspective of people on the outside and how things are for them, like in a normal, ordinary life. And so, like, I saw Freddy grab that bullet, that certified bullet that had bounced off of Superman. Yeah, and like the replicated Batarang, and I'm like, this is totally like stuff that really would happen if we had superheroes. Like, people would have just people would have just swooped in. Oh, hey, I got the bullet, you know? Right? Or, oh, I grabbed one of Batman's Batarangs or something. Let's make a replica of it. Or, hey, there's a superhero on YouTube. Let's, tune in and see what he's all about. He looks brand new.
Yeah, I guess maybe the YouTube videos of a new superhero might have been a normal-ish kind of thing in that universe. Because maybe there were other YouTube videos of other random superheroes that popped up.
Yeah, or maybe like people trying to be superheroes. Like, or like going on and
like the crazy special effects videos that people put up. And they're like, I'm a superhero, but they're not.
Yeah, and then people calling them out in the comments like, oh, this is so fake.
Photoshop.
Oh, this is fake. Yeah.
Editing. But I thought it was cool how they did, like, keep up with the times by putting stuff like that on social media, because that's totally what a teenager would do with it.
Yeah. They're not going to be responsible.
No! My goodness. Adolescents are never that way.
Well, and at this point in time, there is no imminent threat. There's no super villain yet. True. So, I mean, why wouldn't you?
I guess. Yep.
Yeah. Which actually brings me to one thing. I was very curious about this villain that was presented in the movie, who is Dr. Savannah, and he's not really somebody that I was totally familiar with, so I wanted to do a little bit of digging and find out, like, who he is and where he comes from and what's his story. And I found it was very interesting that in the comics, Dr. Savannah's character actually predates Lex Luthor.
Oh, wow.
And Lex Luthor is actually more or less a clone of Dr. Savannah, because he, in the comics, like, he doesn't really have any powers or anything like that. He's just kind of like, a mad genius and, dabbles in technology and, does basically all the things that Lex Luthor does. But Lex Luthor is obviously, more well known because he goes up against Superman. So obviously, like, for the movie, they changed it up to where, he is hunting this relic that he saw when he was a kid. And once he possesses that relic, he gets all of these magic powers. And I thought it was an interesting change, but I thought it was probably necessary, because if you go at it from the angle of, this mad genius, likely billionaire, because, he has this big company and stuff, he's an authority figure in that case. And we know Billy has probably tangled with countless authority figures over the years. He's not going to be scared by an authority figure. But he is going to be scared by something that he can't use his new powers to get out of.
Right, yep, exactly. And something that's also kind of unknown to him, something unpredictable.
Yeah, something, an authority figure, he knows how to get out of that,
Right.
But somebody who pretty much matches him on abilities, it's not really something that he knows how to deal with.
Yeah. Well, and I thought was interesting too is that, like, the purpose of Shazam is to keep the 7 deadly sins under wraps so that they wouldn't terrorize the entire world. And it was interesting too, and I wish they would have done a little bit more with this, was that, like, the different sins would go after different people because that was their vice.
Yeah.
And I wish they would have kind of mentioned that more. They did go into Savannah's specifically toward the end, but I wish they would have kind of tied that in a little bit more closely earlier on and kind of mentioned it more
they did do
up front. They did a couple.
They did one, too, with Savannah's dad.
Yes.
Because he gave him over to greed.
Yep.
But I think that's the only other one besides Envy and Savannah that I can think of.
I want to say that Lust was in there somewhere, but I don't remember which one who Lust had. Well, and he was the creepy one with the super long tongue. That was really creepy. Oof. But I think they kind of, like, showed the different ones with each one of the foster kids, because they all had, like, their own to go up against, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was their particular vices or not either. It
Or
probably
if they just, chose them.
right. Yeah,
Oh,
could
it
have
might have been. It'd be interesting to see if Pedro was like working with gluttony or
Oh
because
yeah,
I think he was,
I
wasn't
think
he?
I think you're right. The huge one. I mean, if it was
Yeah.
the biggest one, it was probably gluttony.
Yeah.
But
He was fighting with Pedro, right?
I think so. And then I
don't
want to
remember
say,
then.
was it Mary was with Lust?
That would make
Maybe?
sense.
I guess. What would Darla's have been though?
I knew she was going super fast. But was she
Yeah,
trying
her
to
speed.
outrun anything?
Was it Sloth? Was
Oh,
Sloth?
might have been.
Whose was Sloth?
That wouldn't have been
then?
her
I
vice,
don't
though.
know.
That would have been
No,
more
that-
like
yeah.
Eugene.
Yeah, maybe Eugene's was Sloth then.
I don't know. It was so cool to go back
Yeah.
and
Now
see
I want
that.
to. Now I want to go.
I had a
look
hard
again.
time keeping track of which is which.
Yeah. Oh, I know. 'Cause
Yeah.
they all kind of look so similar, like gargoyles, but with different facial features and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was like, wait,
Well,
which one is this one? Which
Yeah.
one is this one?
Yeah.
And like halfway through the movie, while that's going on, my daughter's like, "No, wait, what are the 7 deadly sins?" So I'm sitting there with
Like,
my hands
which
out,
one?
and I'm like,
Yeah.
Count them.
"There's
Trying to list
wrath
them all.
and envy and greed and lust and sloth and
Gluttony.
I always miss
And
one.
I always miss one too, because I couldn't think of the one that Savannah kept to maintain his
He kept
powers.
envy.
He kept
Envy.
envy, but when he was naming them off, I'm like, well, what's left? I was like, I forgot what the last one is.
Right, but how cool that Billy pulled
knew
that
him.
out too. That told
Yeah.
him that,
Yep.
and he's while he was on the rooftop talking to him, he's like,
He's
there's
like,
7.
of course.
We've
And
seen
then
the 6.
he totally played it up so that envy would come out too, and I
Yeah,
loved
Yeah.
I loved it.
that was fantastic.
It was clever. It was really
Yeah.
it was really cool to see that clever aspect of things as opposed to just being,
Oh, I'm gonna punch it.
right.
just
Right.
like,
No,
oh, I got
exactly.
super strength and super speed, and rather than using all of that, he had to use some wit, and that was really exciting for me.
Yeah, he had to
Yeah.
use his wit, which I think was kind of like he learned how to use his wit when he was kind of on the streets running from foster parent to foster parent, like trying to figure out people's buttons.
Yeah,
Know what I
we
mean?
already knew that he was a clever kid because
Yeah.
of what he did with the cop car.
Yeah.
So
And he only did that to try and find his mom.
So I was definitely excited to see those elements. I don't know how much of it actually is pertinent to the actual comics because I do know that he does fight classically Savannah and then Mr. Mind and Black Adam. Those are the main Shazam villains. So
Black Adam.
Black Adam.
Interesting.
Oh, he is lame. So
Okay.
lame.
Yeah. But
I mean, that's a really lame name. So
Right. But when the final scenes showed up, and if you stayed for the 2 post-credit scenes, which it was impossible to do in the theater that I was in because the theater kept telling us, don't forget to stay for the last 2 credit scenes, just
my
like Marvel
goodness.
movies. And I was like, who are you? What are you doing?
That's really funny, actually, that they
Excuse
reminded
me.
you.
Right.
Like, you think I was gonna leave? I always stay
I might
now.
have. It's only a DC movie, guys.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't care what movie it is. And now I stay for all of them. Now
Do
that
you
Marvel
really?
has started doing it. I stay for like the end of the Dragons movie. I stayed.
Well, see, and that's the funny thing too is I've trained my daughter well. When we are seeing a Marvel movie, she knows not to get up. Like,
Yeah.
just sit
Oh, yeah.
yourself down. We're gonna be okay. We'll just wait.
Yep. Just gotta make sure.
But I did feel sort of let down by these 2 end credit scenes. Like, I've even watched a couple of YouTube videos that break them down for you, and it didn't really seem like there was a whole lot to break down. Yeah. Dr. Savannah talks to Mr. Mind, and we need to talk about Superman, right?
Oh, definitely do.
Oh yeah.
Because-
I loved that they didn't show the face because I'm thinking like, oh, I guess they didn't want to do the whole CGI no mustache crap that
Right.
Justice
Right.
League pulled out. So
But
we're just gonna
I've
cut it
also
off
heard-
at the neck.
See,
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing Justice League, so I don't remember the CGI stuff. And in the couple
I
of videos that
honestly
I watched,
didn't-
they do talk about that.
I didn't notice the CGI no mustache
Yeah.
thing, but
Oh my
apparently
God,
it
it's
bugs people.
terrible.
Like, okay, I maybe thought his face looked a little strange, but I didn't like it wasn't that bad. And then when I heard what they did, I'm like, that's why his face looked a little weird? Huh. And apparently
Well,
it would
then,
have
what
been
I heard
easier
was
to add a
that-
mustache than it was to take it away. So I
See,
don't know.
what I heard was that they didn't hire on Cavill for this little itty bitty cameo because he isn't signed on for more feature length movies or
that's right.
non-ensemble movies, so there's some kind of issue with his contract.
Okay. I mean, I can understand
That's what I
that.
heard.
So that was
So-
just
Yeah.
somebody in a Superman suit, but definitely wasn't Henry Cavill.
Right. Some buff guy in a Superman
Yeah.
suit.
Yeah.
And they
Well, and
probably
when you
didn't
think
want to,
about
like,
it, that makes
doctor's
sense. I wouldn't
face.
hire him for a cameo like that either if I could just find another buff guy to do it and
Yeah.
pay a lot less money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's Hollywood. They're able to find buff
Right.
guys everywhere. So
It was cool, though, to hear Elizabeth say the Lex Luthor thing, because the whole time I was seeing Dr. Savannah, every time I saw him, I was like, this guy really reminds me of Lex Luthor. The whole time.
if I were more familiar with that character, I would probably have said the same thing, but I definitely am not familiar with Lex Luthor very much.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
Sad to say.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Don't take my nerd card.
If there's anything I know about Superman, it's Lex Luthor. But we never even say this was in Philadelphia, right?
Right. Yes, it was.
How is Philadelphia a thing when there's Superman and Batman, but those are fictional places?
I don't know.
That's Metropolis and Gotham City.
Maybe it's
How
an
does that
alternate
work?
United States that has a metropolis and a Gotham City and a
Oh,
Philadelphia.
are you going to pull out the string theory
Yes.
nonsense?
Yes.
Yes, I will every
Yes.
time.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think
That's my explanation. String theory.
I mean, I don't have a rebuttal, so
That's why string theory is such a great argument because if
Yeah.
it works, it works. Yep. But so
Okay.
a question with the Dr. Savannah character then, as part of his origin story in the comics and like the original background story, was he initially like tested to be Shazam and then failed, or was that added or changed for the movie?
I don't know. I wasn't able to dig that far into his background. But I did find something interesting for Lindsay, is that it looks like canonically Philadelphia is considered to be in the DC universe.
What?
So
Stop
it looks
it.
like... So what I would probably say is that there are those major like made up cities like, Gotham and Metropolis and stuff like that. But for the majority of the country, it's still the regular United States.
okay.
Oh, okay. So it's like United States plus the DC.
Plus
cities.
these extra cities.
Okay.
Because I was curious on that myself, how that all worked. So I had to look that up really quick.
In the major motion picture Shazam Origins comic book, Dr. Savannah's story does not include anything with his father. I don't even know that they call him Thaddeus in the comic book at all. And they don't talk about his brother or the company. He really starts off as someone who is searching for searching for it. So it almost kind of seems like he's been researching it, or like it's part of an archaeological thing. They don't really go too much into depth as to why he's so interested in it.
Gotcha.
And then they do talk about other people who have seen it, but again, it doesn't really talk about him having been introduced to the wizard Shazam or anything like that. So,
Okay.
and then just to like make sure we know his name isn't Shazam. Shazam is the word they say to get their powers. So
Yeah,
even when
is it
he
like-
shares his powers with his family, none of them are going to be named Shazam either. Everybody's got
Right.
to come up with their own name or something because
Right.
it's the
Like-
power of the acronym.
Yeah. Okay. So Shazam is an acronym.
Yep.
Okay. So what is the
It
acronym
is-
then? Because I just found that out now. I am today years
Oh.
old.
On today's years old.
I think I found it actually. Hold on here. Oh, it's what? Okay, so, all right. When Billy first becomes Shazam, and he says Shazam, it's the wisdom of Solomon, S, the strength of Hercules, H, the stamina of Atlas, A, the power of Zeus, Z. Okay, so Atlas is invulnerability. Zeus has the ability to summon thunderbolts. The courage of Achilles, A, and then the speed of Mercury, including flight. So speed is based on flight is based on his speed power, I guess. But when he first tried to use his flight power, it totally failed. Like, he didn't actually do that until he saw Savannah start doing it.
I think he was what was really weird to me was that he was trying to scale buildings. He was trying to jump over buildings or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't that also have to do with this
That
flying thing?
I mean, I
Well,
guess.
it's probably has to do with like the origin of his flying.
Yeah.
Because Superman's is basically his jumping.
Okay.
It is kind of based
So
off
it's
of
kind
that.
of a
So that's
strength.
so that's more of a strength thing. That's why his that famous line is, "Oh, he can leap tall buildings in a single bound."
Yeah, and so then Freddy's
and they
like, you should try it.
Yeah, and they had also tried earlier, oh, well, you got to believe that you got to fly,
Yeah,
And
like,
so I think
Peter
they were, and so I think they were trying out different, like, types of flight, but they never really hit on what exactly he needed until that moment.
Right, because it says, in what I just found on Quora, that speed is how he flies. So
Yeah, and
Right.
I'm guessing it was probably his terminal velocity as he was falling towards the Earth. It finally reached that point to where his flying kicked in. Because before, he probably wasn't going fast enough for long enough for it to kick in.
Okay.
That's my guess, at least.
I like that. That makes a lot of sense.
I did love how when they were trying to come up with a name for him, they never said Captain Marvel.
No.
I know.
Well, they probably weren't allowed to.
Well, yeah.
I know.
But still, like, I thought it was... I think it's interesting also that Marvel's Captain Marvel came out, and then DC's Shazam Captain Marvel came out pretty much back to back, like, month to month.
Yeah. And
so
honestly,
like,
I like this one a lot more.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's definitely my favorite DC movie. But,
definitely, by far.
Yeah. Like, it's so good.
The references to Aquaman, to Batman, to Superman, those really were cute little nuggets for me.
Oh, I loved the part he was trying to talk to the fish, and he's like, why would I need to talk to what's so cool about talking to fish? Like, well, so you can summon all of the creatures of the deep and fight a war? I don't know. I forget exactly what they said. I mean, it sounds super cool. It was great.
Well, and it's cute because chronologically then we know that this is after the events of Aquaman.
Yes,
so.
yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just love it because it feels like, even for me, like, I mean, I haven't read a whole lot of his comics, but he actually does make appearances in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. And even then, like, he's kind of one of the characters that are more on the outside of things. Kind of along with other characters like the Question and Huntress, where he's there, but he's not really always in the thick of things like a lot of the other characters are. Like, Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Green Arrow and Green Lantern and... all of those characters. So I kind of felt that they kind of kept that vibe with him where he is a superhero, but he's still kind of on the outside a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, he knows Superman, so that's cool. But
I kind of wonder how that meeting went.
I know. I'm like, how did he meet Superman? Like, does Superman just make the rounds to all of the new up-and-coming heroes or something?
Maybe Batman rang him up and he's like, okay, it's your turn.
Right.
We got this new kid.
There's a new guy.
There is definitely at least one comic book that is the power of Shazam versus Superman. So,
so
at least in one comic book, they do meet and they do spar in some way, shape, or form. I also wanted to talk about the thing that Freddy was talking about before Billy even gets the powers, where he says, if you could have invisibility or what was the other one?
Or
Super
flight.
strength?
Or flight.
Oh, flight, yeah.
Yep.
So if you could have flight or invisibility, which one would you have? And he talks about how invisibility is a supervillain trait, and how people who didn't know or who knew that their questions were going to be answered anonymously would say invisibility. That is
So
like
interesting.
such a study in sociology.
Yes.
I was like, oh,
It
this
totally
is so cool.
though. I love how nerdy Freddy was about everything superheroes.
Yes. Oh gosh, I was
Like,
in love
so
with him.
much. It's fantastic.
And I
kind of wanted
kind
to
of
meet
love-
him in real life.
And I kind of love how, like, later on, like, when they were talking, him and Billy were talking, and Freddy was talking about how he feels invisible because of his disability. How
Yeah.
people just ignore him. And so it kind of, like, brings that question back, where it's like, you know, he wishes he was something different because he feels like he is invisible.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, and then, of course, the first power he realizes he has after he gets the power of Shazam is he starts to fly.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm. And he's like, wow. So that, to him, must be, like, really cool validation about
course.
like, having powers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
also, like, being important.
Well, and I think it was cool that each of them got the powers and that Billy shared them, and that he ends up being the champion, and that he is found to be pure of heart, because there's so many inferences in the beginning of the movie that kind of say, no, he couldn't possibly be. No.
Right.
There's so much ugly grayness to him. There's
But
so much,
that's
like...
the thing. The grayness kind of almost makes him that way. Because he sees things from all angles, I think.
Yeah, I kind of like how that kind of brings home the whole message of family and working together and everything like that. And I think if he had tried to do that before, I don't think he would have, because I think that pure of heart state is not something that you just are. It's something that you're constantly working towards. And I think at that point, Billy had reached that point where he was being selfless enough, where he cared about his family, you know, where he considered them his family. And at that point, he was able to share his power with them so that they could all defeat Savannah and the Sins.
Right, and then, of course, going back to the beginning, when he is talking with the wizard, and he tells him, I don't think that a person pure of heart even exists.
Right.
And then to, in the end up being the champion for him is like, whoa, because the transformation that he has to go through after he gets the powers is so significant.
Yeah. No, it really
And
is.
that's one of the things I actually really, really like about this, is that once Billy is granted these powers, he's not immediately some altruistic hero. He's still himself. He still has his own selfish wants and desires. He still sloughs off school and is
and tries to get
hawking
beer,
autographs and selfies for money, and he's still himself, and he has to still learn what it is not just to be a superhero, but to be a good person.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, and the beer scene where they drink it and they say that it tastes like vomit.
Right.
And then go back in and get a bunch of
Candy.
junk food.
And junk, yes. Like total teenager.
My daughter
right
went
there.
to the bathroom during that scene, and it's apparently in the comic book because she wanted it to happen. She came back, and she was like, she sat there for about 10, 15 minutes, and then she goes, wait, what about the beer scene? And I was like, oh, you missed it.
Sorry. You'll just have to see it another time. Oh.
It was just cute.
I just really loved it in general. Well, I thought, okay, from an acting perspective, I thought for such like young actors, especially Billy and Freddie, those guys did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Like taking the roles they did seriously. And then Zachary Levi acting like he's a teenager in an adult body. Like that was amazing.
That's what I was going to say, because I really enjoyed Zachary Levi like embracing the kiddishness of the character.
Yeah.
That was really cute.
If you've seen him in Chuck, you kind of like that's like one of his style points, is because he like totally takes super awkward stuff and rolls with it and makes it feel natural. It's awesome.
And looking at it just from a writing perspective, I feel this was a really pretty solid offering. I'm still not going to say it's perfect, because there were still a couple of odd instances here or there, but for me, the rest of the movie kind of outshined everything that I might nitpick on, which to me is a big deal, especially for a DC movie that lately have not been so good writing-wise.
Sure.
So, like, I'm not sure what writing team that they got to do this movie, but I think they need to, like, hire them on for all of the rest of the DC movies. Yes.
Everything.
Yes, employ them forever. And, get them over at Marvel, too. I don't care, but I really love how they... Yeah, I really love how they came together and wrote this script that was just full of humor and light, but it also handled a lot of mature, heavy subjects at the same time. I'm like, yes, like, you can do this. Yes, you don't have to be dark and gritty to handle these types of subjects, and you don't have to be totally goofy in order to have humor and light in a movie. Like, this, you guys get it. Like, you get it. I liked it.
I think they found a similar balance as like Avatar: The Last Airbender found.
Yes.
To bring
that's kind of how I felt
heavy
too.
Things, but also humor and kid stuff, but not super kid stuff. Like, so good. Loved it.
So I do want to mention that I think it's really cool that this is something that sort of felt like it could stand alone as a movie by itself. Not knowing very much about the DC universe at this point in time, I felt very comfortable throughout the whole film. That I wasn't completely blindsided, or that I didn't know what was going on. Everything felt very cool and collected to me, and I knew what was happening, and I had just enough little Easter eggs and bonuses in there to make it fun for me and fun for my daughter as well.
Yeah, and I didn't feel like I needed I didn't feel like I was missing any backstory on anybody.
Exactly.
You really didn't need it. They gave you just enough information, like about Savannah and about Shazam, and like if we want to learn more, we can, but we don't have to, because
it's called show not tell.
Yes, they did a fantastic job of that. So
you could buy a lot of comic books like I did and go crazy too.
Exactly. So, all right, well, thank you guys so much for getting nerdy with us today. We hope you enjoyed our episode, and if you haven't already, go see Shazam. It was fantastic. We'd love it if you guys left a review for us or a rating on this episode or on our podcast in general. We do love feedback, and it always definitely helps us make better episodes for you. So if you could please do that, we'd really, really, really appreciate it. Thanks again for listening today, and hopefully maybe you can tell a friend about it. And then that's all we have. So with that, my name is Emily.
I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Lindsay. And thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headcanons.